Hello everybody, I hope you're doing well. Well, welcome to my new bottom of the barrel scraping ranking list that everybody on YouTube loves. Let's be honest, I've been thinking of things that I can do since I broke my wrist, and yeah, I know you're probably sick of me mentioning it, but yeah, I had a bit of a skating accident for those unaware. But anyway, one of the things that I've been meaning to do for a little while is, well, ranking what are my favourite Amigas essentially, so I thought why not do 12 days of Amiga, ranking worst to best. Now I will just say that this is purely my opinion along with some factual research done over the course of looking at Wikipedia for half a minute. Actually there's a little bit more to it than that, to be honest with you. I do know a little bit about this, so well, hopefully I do anyway. I'll let you be the judge of that in the comments. I'm sure you can tell me, well, actually, I think you'll find that no. Yeah, well, anyway, so I just want to point out a few little criteria for this. Number one, when it comes to models like the Amiga 2500, 3000 and 4000, when it comes to actually ranking those, I'm going to include all their sub-variants under that one heading. So, for example, with the Amiga 4000, the 030, the 040, the Tower variant will all be put in together. Amiga 4000. Same with all the Amiga 3000 variants and a couple of Amiga 2500 variants. In fact, there's 3 Amiga 2500 variants, but anyway, let's not get too bogged down with all of that. The second thing is how I'm actually ranking these. So the ranking is partially based on what the machine was at the time of its launch, as well as what I think of it now as according to my opinion, and according to whether you should actually buy one kind of thing. So, a little bit vague, I suppose, on the ranking, but yeah, it's my opinion. So, I've not purposely gone out to offend you specifically watching this video, or have I? I'll let you decide that. So, anyway, without further ado, let's get on straight with it. So, in at number 12, as my worst Amiga, is the Amiga 1500. So what is this? Well, this is a region-specific Amiga model released in the UK at the end of 1990 by, well, you guessed it, Commodore UK. So what is the Amiga 1500? Is it some sort of slightly more advanced Amiga 500? Is it some slightly less good Amiga 2000? Is it half an Amiga 3000? Well, no, it's this. Whatever this is. This is actually a true photo, stock image, actually supplied directly from Commodore, as you can see. Oh, sorry, I forgot something. I need to upgrade this. Just one moment. You'll love this. That's much better. So what the Amiga 1500 is yes, this is nothing other than an Amiga 2000 with an extra floppy drive. Now, for those of you in the know, the Amiga 2000 was originally launched at the very beginning of 1987, almost 5 years before this machine was foisted upon the market. So the question is, what on earth were Commodore UK playing at? Well, it seems the answer is that a third-party company called Checkmate Digital, earlier on in 1990 or thereabouts, had started marketing a product which would allow you to convert your Amiga 500 into a svelte desktop case style computer system. So you would have your desktop case, monitor sat on top of that, a detachable keyboard and your mouse. So it looks a bit like a PC or maybe a Macintosh LC. And this product had been doing quite well by all accords. So Commodore obviously thought, oh, third parties making money out of the industry, we can't have that. We've got to come out with our own product. So this was it, the Amiga 1500, pretty horrible computer. Pretty certain that's what they called it anyway, PHC. And yes, it's an Amiga 2000 with an extra floppy drive. Now, there are many crazy things about this, and I want to break it down, and then I want to perhaps answer whether this is a machine to buy in 2022 and beyond. So first, this was launched on the market for £999 plus VAT, something that's often missed. Many people report that this was £1,000. It wasn't. Some retailers did discount it to quite close to that on launch, but yes, it was technically £1,150, including the VAT or thereabouts. Now, one thing Commodore did kind of right with this is that, one, they did bundle it with a monitor, so thank goodness they weren't expecting, office environments to go, oh yes, we'll have that nice Amiga, pretty horrible computer. And also, could we have that Matsui 14-inch Fastech TV to go with it? Because that will look really smart. Oh no, actually no, we'll go for the Grundig 18-inch. That's a bit cheaper, isn't it? Plug it in with RF. Yeah, that's going to be a really professional word processing system. Yeah, so at least they included the Commodore 1084S monitor with the system. And also, to be fair, the software package they bundled with it was pretty good. This was something that Commodore UK, at least up until the Amiga 1200, was pretty good at doing. So, for example, it came with two decent, I would say, relevant games to the system, SimCity and Populous, which were great on the Amiga.
And tell me, well, actually, I think you'll find that no.
And two productivity packages, Deluxe Paint 3 and The Works, which was an integrated productivity suite with a text processor, spreadsheet and database. And The Works was pretty much the best integrated package for the Amiga, and not to be confused with Microsoft Works, of course. But unfortunately, let me just break down why this is a bad machine to launch in 1990. So this has no hard disk, so it's going to be slow loading stuff. Yes, you've got two floppy drives to alleviate that a bit, so okay. Second, the Amiga chipset, as of 1985, when it was first launched, could not display flicker-free screens without extra hardware. What this meant was that when you wanted to display a screen that was approaching what you see is what you get in desktop publishing or word processing, you would have to put up with a flickering screen. It would have been really hard on the eyes to work at. And whilst you could technically get away with this in 1985, in 1990, no. This was the era of when VGA was fast becoming the standard, or was the standard. By that point, EGA was well on its way out by that point. And also, the Macintosh had nice flicker-free displays pretty much from its very inception. In fact, even the Atari ST had a nice monochrome flicker-free display. So you would have to put up with flickering screens in your productivity packages, which is arguably what this has been aimed towards. Another factor is that this still contains that 68,000 processor that the Amiga has been coming with since 1985. And yes, it has 1 mega chip RAM, but hey, that ain't such a big deal really in the day and age that this was launched. Yes, you could do a few more animation cells in D-Paint, but really, it ain't going to cut the mustard. So yeah, this was pretty much an Amiga 2000, just with an extra floppy drive. So 1987 tech, inverted commas, in 1990. So let's set this in context. 6 months before this, Commodore launched the flagship Amiga of the time, the Amiga 3000, and that included hard disk by default in all models, a fast 68030 processor with math coprocessor, more than enough RAM. I think pretty much all models came with at least 2 megabytes of RAM, a fast SCSI controller for hard disks and other peripherals like tape drives and later CD-ROM drives. It had the latest expansion slot standard, which this doesn't have. It also came with a flicker fixer to get rid of those horrible flickering screens. So when you was working in WYSIWYG editors like PageStream and whatever else, doing your desktop publishing or word processing or spreadsheets, you could look at a nice rock-steady VGA monitor with no flicker. And it also came with the very latest version of the Amiga operating system, Release 2. So these were all good things, and yes, they came at a fair price. So yes, I'm not trying to suggest that Commodore UK should have packed in Amiga 3000 power into like a £1,000 price package. That's not what I'm suggesting. But I believe that there are some things that Commodore really shouldn't have been doing. One, they shouldn't have been selling the Amiga 2000 base model at the same time as this. Just get rid of it. It just doesn't make any sense to keep it in the marketplace. Two, they should have basically ensured that this machine had the very latest version of the Amiga operating system, Release 2, bundled with it from day one. Pretty much all models of this came with Kickstart 1.3 and Workbench 1.3, which was at this time 3 years old. It doesn't make any sense to basically say, here's our new standard, Release 2 with the Amiga 3000, but you can only get it if you spend all this money, otherwise you've got to have this out-of-date stuff. If you're trying to establish a standard, that is not how you push it forwards, is it? you didn't get people going into IBM PC dealers and saying, oh, I want to buy a 386 because that's in my budget. Oh, well, no problems. Come this way. We've got these 386s here. Come with Windows 3.0, the latest operating system from Microsoft.
And tell me, well, actually, I think you'll find that no.
Oh, well, that looks good. And it's going to cost you dollars or pounds or euros or whatever, Deutschmarks as it would have been at the time, or francs and so forth. Sorry if I've excluded your currency, in the comments. But basically, then move on. Oh, but we also have this 386 PC. It's really good, madam, but it comes with Windows 1.0. It's a bit out of date. Nothing really runs on it anymore, but we'll knock $100 off you. Oh, I'll definitely go for the 386 with something I can't really run on it. Now, okay, not quite the same situation because pretty much all Amiga software would run on 1.3, but it just doesn't make any sense to have your latest standard that you want people to move on to and then withhold it. Yes, I understand that, the Amiga 3000 needs a reason to exist and a reason for its price, but all the other things that it had were doing that. So this should have come bundled with Release 2 of the Amiga OS. And yes, I know later on some Amiga 1500s did come with Kickstart 2.0 for 37.175. Yes, I'm well aware. Put that keyboard down. Mostly that was from some dealers that sort of quietly upgraded it. But anyway. So it should have had the latest Amiga OS with it, which looked a lot more professional as well. I don't care what you say about Workbench 1.3. It looks like a garish mess. I have no nostalgia for it. Okay, and number 3. I think I would have changed the way that this was bundled. Okay, I think a hard disk would have bumped the price up too much. SCSI controllers for this with a hard disk were running at about £400 to £500. It's going to make this too expensive, even though really you should be bundling a hard disk in a machine like this because those floppy drives are going to be slow. But fine, we'll keep the cost down. 2 floppy drives it is. I would have then got rid of that 1084S monitor, and what would I do instead? I'd have put in the latest Flicker Fixer card from Commodore, the Amber card, which had been released by this time that this machine came out, and that would have given you rock-steady VGA compatible displays. All Amiga screen modes, all games would work with it, all productivity applications, everything would have displayed on it, and then I would have basically rebanded a fairly cheap VGA monitor with Commodore on it and sold it with that instead, because at least then you would have had the rock steady display for your productivity applications, and when you go to play Populous, for example, the display still works. You don't need 2 monitors for it. And 3, I would have got rid of the Works, because that as an integrated suite on the Amiga is as good as it gets, I think, but it doesn't hold a candle to things like Microsoft Works or Claris Works, which was your competitors at the time. And instead I would have bundled it with a choice of a desktop publishing package, because I think ProPage and also PageStream were excellent on the Amiga. Certainly with Release 2 of the Amiga operating system, you would have been benefiting from things like scalable fonts, a good thing. Maybe a little bit cumbersome on a floppy disk system, but it could have been done. I mean, you did have 2 floppy drives, I suppose. And also the other option would have been a decent what you see is what you get word processor, something like Kind Words, or I think it's ProPage, or I'll have to correct that, maybe it was ProWrite, I forget now, but that would have given you a display that would have allowed you to change the fonts. You would have been able to see what they look like on screen without them being stretched. Flicker-free display, as I say, from that Flicker Fixer. You could insert graphics, and let's not forget that that would have been really important at the time. Like maybe in our age of the World Wide Web, the printed page is not as important as it used to be. But back then, printed documents and word processing were hot property, as was desktop publishing. And yeah, this machine, it wouldn't have been the very best for it. I think you'd have probably wanted a 68020 processor and that hard disk, to be honest with you. But, maybe that could have been offered as an option. But I still think the 1500 being based on the Amiga 2000 is still really the wrong thing. Even if you make all those changes, I still think it's the wrong thing. And there is a very good reason for this, because at the same time that Commodore UK was putting this out, Commodore as a whole was cancelling a whole range of Amigas that they had in development that would have been much better than this piece of crap, quite frankly. And the thing that really should have stepped into this place was a machine that they were developing that was tentatively called the Amiga 1000 Plus. Now, some of you may have heard of this, but for those that haven't, what this machine was is a pizza box style case, like a Macintosh LC. It wasn't an Amiga 1000 in any real shape or form, it was a new system. But the crucial difference is not only would it be in this sleek case, but it would have come with a 68020 processor, probably at least 1 megabyte of RAM, but hopefully 2. And, most crucially, it would have come with the AGA chipset, or as it was called at the time, the Pandora chipset. Now this would have given the Amiga 256 colour displays in 1991. Okay, at the start of 91 or thereabouts, you would have had a system that could display 640 by 480 VGA standard displays with 256 colours. And yes, probably not as fast as VGA, and still, yeah, Doom wouldn't be so hot on it because, let's face it, it's still AGA. But that would have made a whole world of difference. How much better this machine would have been than this chunky box. You know, it just doesn't make any sense to have released this instead of that. And Commodore scrapped that machine because it was too expensive. And instead, they then focused for the next year and a half or so on cobbling together ECS machines, which were just really outdated, just had no real overall benefits. And then when it was too late, they then basically scrabbled together the Amiga 4000. But that's another story. But yeah, this is the Amiga 1500. So would I buy one now? Would I recommend you buy one now? Not really, no. I can only think of one really good reason to buy one of these, and that is if you want to create a video toaster setup. Now you can watch a video all about the video toaster on my channel, because I talked to Ant Jarvis of the Amiga show about how he uses the video toaster to produce his YouTube channel. The Amiga show. I think I just said that. But he basically uses this Amiga video editing system to create videos. And this machine is compatible with that. So that makes sense. So yeah, this is a good basis for that. But expansions for this system are quite expensive. Hard disk controllers can be expensive. CPU upgrades are expensive. RAM upgrades can be expensive. It's more expensive than upgrading an Amiga 500, for example. So unless you need those expansion slots, I just don't think that this is a particularly great system to choose in 2022 or beyond. Another little problem with these machines is that they have that battery backed up clock soldered onto the motherboard. And this means that the battery leaks and leaks acid all over the motherboard, meaning that many of these don't work anymore until they've been repaired. And yes, they can be repaired, but that can be quite pricey. And unless you've got the skills, well, you're going to need somebody else to do that for you, aren't you? So yeah, overall, yeah, selling a rebadged Amiga 2000 at the tail end of 1990 and beyond is just the wrong thing to be doing. Even if it has a slightly half-decent software package with it. Nuh-uh. Yeah, considering what we could have got, and this is what we got instead, I think the Amiga 1500, pretty horrible computer, is just, wow. It was a bad idea at the time, and I just don't think, really, it's the best Amiga in 2022. Anyway, so what's your opinion? Please slag me off in the comments. I'm sure you'll have your reasons of why I've got this wrong, and I would actually like to hear them. Tell me why I'm wrong, and tell me what you think is the worst Amiga. I'll be very interested to hear what you've got to say. Or, I don't know, any other things that I might have got wrong. Please tell me in the comments. I'm sure I've got something wrong. Nobody knows everything. I can only try and pass on a little bit of knowledge, so please teach me. Oshiete kudasai. Anyway, so I hope you've enjoyed this video, and in the next video, which will be in 2 days' time, I will be offending another range of Amiga owners with my number 11 Amiga of all time. Anyway, that's it from me. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I guess all it remains for me to say is see you soon. Peace!